I used to watch my mother come home every day from work when I was 12 years old, and when she would come home, she had swollen ankles, swollen knees from standing up and working for so long. She was working in the midst of winter, waking up at 4 a.m., and I really wanted freedom for her. And so I didn't know how, but I think my mother is the reason why my learning was so quickly, why I learned so fast. You see, I think people struggle a lot with learning, especially when they watch all sorts of videos about a topic, trying to make money or trying to improve something. They watch books, they watch guides and everything. And somehow it feels like no matter what they do, they still aren't improving. So as a child, my family really, they weren't rich, but we were, I would say, middle class or maybe lower middle class. My father is a teacher and my mother just worked at a hotel or some cleaning jobs. And so I could see that my mother especially, she had to take care of the kids, us as well, and she was just so stressed out, having negative feelings as well. And that is when I discovered YouTube. And I was watching PewDiePie growing up, and so I thought, okay, what if I make gaming videos? I know that he's quite successful with that. And so, as I was going to primary school, I decided to focus on YouTube as well, because I wanted to really have freedom for my mother. And so, when I did YouTube, even as a child, I had a bit of success, even when I was 14, 15, because I was learning a bit. I was still focused on school, but I was learning a lot, and I wasn't learning just to grow on YouTube. I had to make it work. And so that's when I realized that information matters more when there's a purpose. And so as I was continuing with the channel up to when I finished primary school, so I was 15 years old, then I decided to take a gap year off of primary school. So I have 1 year after finishing the main school before going to high school, which is 10th grade in the US or something like that. So I could focus 1 year on YouTube. And during this time, I had to prove to myself that I really could do it. And I only had 1 year, and I still had my mother working endlessly. And so now I had very high stakes, not only time pressure, but also my mother. So now what I did was I really took it very seriously, because YouTube is a platform where when you go into it, there's all the freedom and there's no real stakes for an ordinary person. Anybody can make a video, and there's no real penalty for failing, I think. And that is the biggest difference between why I learned so quickly than others. And so now that if I failed, I was going to have to go back to school, watch my mother continue to work for her whole life, and, well, let myself down because I had gambled, or not gambled, but invested my whole life trying to get freedom for my mother. But during this year, I was obsessed with studying thumbnails and videos, and I would write down on notes as well, and literally everything was aligned to YouTube. It was like everything was just focused on this. Every single video I picked up, which would be directly influencing my videos. And so now that learning had become essential for me, that is when my channel really started to not blow up, but it had gained traction. So I was doing YouTube gaming now, and during halfway through my gap year, so 6 months, I decided to to try out new things like YouTube Shorts and such. And I kept on experimenting and growing the channel even further. And then I started making a few $100s a month. And by the time the gap year was almost finished, 1 year had almost passed, and I was about to start high school again, I had made $1,000 from the gaming channel. And so I remember I was sitting on a boat in Croatia, and I was laying down with the sea and just looking up into the sky, thinking of ways to improve the channel, because I was making a bit of shorter videos. But to get my mother freedom, I couldn't just do YouTube for views. I needed to have a sustainable source of income, a long-term source, how would I say, of growth, so that my mother can retire and I don't have a channel where 1 month it goes up and down. And that's when I stumbled upon a format that would change my life. I remember thinking about, okay, what I'm doing is working, but what if I learn about this Minecraft format called 100 Days? And so I got an awareness of what worked, and I applied it to my game, RimWorld. And what happened was, when I got back from the vacation and I had almost 1 month left to high school, I went all in. And then when I started high school, I remember thinking, I cannot do this anymore. Why am I here in high school? I don't see a real future here. What am I wasting my time here for? It's going so well. The channel at this point was at $2,000, $3,000 per month. So I could see the growth of the channel. And so what ended up happening was, I was doing school at the same time as YouTube, but I was so stressed from doing both at the same time. I was still influenced by school and having to do well in school, even though I knew that I could do well on YouTube. And so what happened was, I eventually dropped out a few months after. And then when I dropped out of high school, that was really when everything changed, because now, I had a backup at least before. Okay, if YouTube doesn't work in this 1 year, then my mother will probably not, she will still have to work. But now that I dropped out of high school, if I fail, not only would I feel bad about it, but I literally invested everything into it. I drop out, and if I were to fail now, then what was the point of it all? So now the stakes were even higher. And so after high school, I just went all in. I studied videos, I worked harder than ever. I remember 8, 10, 12-hour days. I hired an editor actually, so I could focus more on, I think I hired 2 editors. But when I dropped out of high school, I was making $5,000 a month. So it's not like it came out of a bad position. I knew that it could work, and now it had to work because I could clearly see it moving towards the right direction. And so only 3 months after dropping out of high school, this was December 2022, only 3 months after I made my first $10,000 month. Actually, when I dropped out of high school, I went from $5,000 to $3,000 and then up to $10,000, all in the span of 10 months. And that is when everything changed, because now it's almost like this whole time learning was survival information. I realized this, but when you're in nature, or when we used to be threatened by something, we would pick up on the information that was essential to our survival. And that is exactly what happened here. And then after only not even that, 3-4 months after hitting $10,000, I hit my first $20,000 month on YouTube with a gaming channel. It's called VQ, but that's when I realized that everything that I did, everything that I learned, I wrote it down. I obsessed about it. When I was in bed, I was thinking about it. I never had a day off where I wasn't thinking about YouTube. And it's because there were such clear stakes, and failing would mean real consequences. And I didn't want to let my mother down, myself down, because I was so determined. And I think there was this guy named Hernan Cortes. There was a Spanish inquisitor that embarked upon Mexico, and when he was going to conquer Mexico, he burnt down the boats behind him because the soldiers now had no way out. They knew that if they were to fail here, it was all over. They cannot go to the battle and then, oh, I don't want to do this, I'm going to go back on the boat and sail home. No, 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 no. I had to win, because if I hadn't had to win, I would have to return to the boat of going to school, getting a 9 to 5. It's not like it would have been the end of the world. I could have retired my mother if I got a high-paying job, but that would have been 10, maybe 20 years later. And that I managed to do it when I was 18, 19 years old, that was the most satisfying thing ever. Learning really changed when it became survival information. And if you have a specific goal in mind, you need to have the goal, but also make a list of what happens to your life if you weren't able to fulfill the goal. It should be a really high goal as well, or maybe not, but at least a goal that has clear stakes, because otherwise, when things go wrong, you will want to back out and then you quit the goal and then you don't learn as quickly. And I think that if I were to have grown up with a better situation where my parents wouldn't be struggling so much, I would have been way more comfortable, gone to school and just lived a normal life. But I now realize that I learn so much quicker when I set a goal and then make a list of what happens when I don't achieve it. Right now, I am setting a goal to become bigger than a gaming YouTuber, because if I don't want to be stuck here for 10 or 20 more years, but that is for another video. Anyways, I really do hope you enjoyed, and I really wish you to grow to your best capabilities, and that will go way faster if there's clear failure, actually. Anyhow, thanks for watching, and have a blessed day.